SHH, I need to make love. The rancher satisfied her, and then he had a wife. She had grown up in a busy city, surrounded by noise, traffic, and the constant rush of people. And though she loved her work, she often felt a deep yearning for calm, simplicity, and something real. That's why she had agreed to deliver supplies to a ranch a few miles outside the town. The job seemed simple enough, just a few boxes of food, tools, and other necessities for the ranchers. But Emily had a feeling that this visit might be different from her usual deliveries. She didn't know it yet, but it would change the way she thought about life, love, and the kind of people who truly mattered. As she drove along the dusty road, Emily admired the wide-open landscape around her. Rolling hills stretched for miles, painted in shades of green and gold by the late afternoon sun. A small creek ran along one side of the road, its water sparkling like tiny diamonds whenever the sunlight hit it just right. Birds flew across the sky in perfect formations, and every now and then a deer would dart across the fields, pausing briefly to look at her with curious eyes. Emily felt a rare sense of freedom. In the city, she rarely had moments like these. Here, surrounded by nature, she could breathe, think, and feel alive again. When she finally reached the ranch, she was greeted by the sight of a large wooden house with a porch that wrapped around the front. A few barns and sheds stood scattered around the property, along with wide fields where cattle grazed peacefully. The smell of fresh hay, animals, and earth filled her senses. She stepped out of her car and took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She wasn't sure why, but something told her that today would not be just another ordinary delivery. As she walked toward the house, she noticed a man standing near the barn, leaning against a fence and watching the cattle with a serious expression. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with strong hands that suggested a life of hard work. His hair was dark and slightly messy, as if the wind had played with it, and his eyes were sharp yet gentle, holding a quiet strength. There was something in the way he carried himself, confident, grounded, and yet approachable, that immediately caught her attention. Emily felt a small flutter in her chest, though she told herself not to be silly. She was here to deliver supplies, nothing more. "Hello," she called out softly, trying not to startle him. The man turned toward her, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment, he simply looked at her, as if assessing who she was and what she wanted. Then, a small smile appeared on his face. "Hello," he replied, his voice deep and calm, carrying the kind of warmth that made her feel instantly at ease. "You must be Emily, I'm Luke. Thanks for bringing the supplies." Emily felt her cheeks warm slightly. "Yes, that's me. It's no trouble at all." "I hope everything arrived on time." Luke shook his head, laughing softly. "You don't have to worry about timing out here. The ranch works at its own pace. We're not in a rush, thankfully." There was something comforting in his words. Emily noticed how relaxed he seemed, even though he was clearly busy managing the ranch and the animals. It was a stark contrast to the constant pressure she felt in her city life. She realized she could spend hours just watching someone like Luke work, moving efficiently, yet gracefully, with the land and the animals. She followed him to the barn, carrying the boxes in her hands. As they walked, Luke pointed out different tools, areas of the property, and even a few cows that needed special attention. Emily tried to focus on what he was saying, but she couldn't help noticing the way he moved with ease and confidence, the way he smiled occasionally, and the way his eyes seemed to see everything clearly. She found herself curious about him, wondering what kind of life he led, what joys and struggles he had experienced, and why he seemed so different from anyone she had ever met. After unloading the supplies, Emily took a moment to sit on a nearby wooden bench, watching Luke as he tended to the animals. There was something almost mesmerizing about the way he worked. He spoke to the cows softly, guiding them with gentle touches and calm commands. Emily realized that this was a man who understood the meaning of patience, responsibility, and care. He wasn't just strong, He was kind, thoughtful, and deeply connected to the life he had chosen. "I'm glad you're enjoying the view," Luke said suddenly, noticing her watching him. "Most people come here, see the land, and don't appreciate it, but you seem different. You notice things." Emily smiled, feeling a small spark of connection. "I think it's beautiful. There's something honest about this place, about the life you live here." "It's very different from the city." Luke nodded, leaning against the fence again, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "It is different, and it's not always easy. There's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility, but there's also peace. And moments like this, moments worth noticing." For the first time in a long while, Emily felt like someone truly understood what she valued. Not just the superficial things, but the quiet, meaningful moments that made life rich. She realized she wanted to know more about him, to learn his story and perhaps to share some of her own. Over the next hour, they talked casually while finishing the work at the ranch. Luke shared stories about his childhood, growing up in the country, learning to work the land, and the challenges of running a ranch. Emily laughed at some of his funny experiences and listened intently to his more serious reflections. She felt a surprising comfort in his presence, as if she could talk openly without judgment, without needing to hide any part of herself. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, Emily realized she had lost track of time. The ranch looked magical under the soft evening light. The animals were calm, the wind whispered through the trees, and the distant hills seemed to glow with warmth. Luke stood beside her, watching the horizon with a quiet smile. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, breaking the comfortable silence. Emily nodded. "It really is. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before." Luke's eyes met hers again, and for a moment there was a gentle understanding between them. They didn't need to speak. The silence carried a weight of mutual recognition and curiosity. Something had begun here, a connection that neither of them could ignore, even if neither fully understood it yet. As Emily packed up the last of the empty boxes to leave, she felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She didn't know where this connection with Luke might lead, but she knew one thing for certain. This visit was unlike any she had ever made. It was the beginning of something unexpected, something that would challenge her heart, her decisions, and the way she thought about love and relationships. When she said goodbye and walked back to her car, Luke called out softly, "You're welcome to visit any time. There's always work to do and someone to talk to." Emily smiled, feeling her heart beat a little faster. "Thank you, I might just take you up on that." As she drove away, leaving the ranch behind, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Luke standing by the fence, looking after her car until it disappeared from view. A shiver of anticipation ran down her spine. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt certain that this chance encounter would stay with her for a long time, and that her life might never be the same again. The quiet roads, the glowing fields, and the gentle warmth of the setting sun marked the start of something new. Emily didn't know it yet, but she had just met someone who would challenge her emotions, awaken her heart, and change her perspective on life and love. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to explore those feelings without fear. After that first visit to the ranch, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Luke. There was something about the way he carried himself, the calm strength in his voice, and the quiet way he connected with the land that stayed with her long after she left. Every time she went back to her apartment in the city, the memory of the wide-open fields and the golden sunlight on the hills lingered. She realized she wanted to go back, not just for the deliveries she had to make, but because she felt drawn to the man she had met, the way he made even simple moments feel meaningful. A few days later, Emily returned to the ranch with another set of supplies. This time, she allowed herself to take a bit longer, walking around the property to truly see it. The barns, the fields, and the distant hills seemed alive in a way the city could never be. The air smelled fresher, the colors seemed brighter, and the sounds of nature were soothing in a way that made her chest feel lighter. When she finally saw Luke, he was repairing a fence near the far side of the pasture. The sun glinted off his hair and he looked focused yet peaceful. "Hey," she called, smiling as she approached. Luke turned and smiled warmly. "Back so soon? You're becoming a regular around here." Emily laughed lightly, feeling a little shy. "I guess I am. It's nice here. And the work doesn't seem so bad with a little company." He chuckled, brushing some dirt from his hands. "Well, I won't argue with that. It's better than doing everything alone." As Emily helped him unload the boxes, their conversation flowed easily. They talked about everything from favorite books and movies to memories of their childhoods. Luke shared stories about growing up on the ranch, the lessons he had learned from his father, and the small victories that came with managing a farm. Emily talked about her life in the city, the pressure of her job, and how she often felt disconnected from the world around her. It wasn't just talk, though. Their conversations had a quiet depth that neither of them could ignore. Emily noticed how attentive Luke was, how he listened carefully without interrupting, and how he seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. For her part, Emily found herself opening up more than she usually did with strangers. There was a comfort in his presence, a sense that she could be herself without judgment. After finishing the deliveries, Luke suggested a short walk around the property. Emily agreed, intrigued by the chance to see more of the ranch and spend time with him. They walked side by side along a narrow dirt path, bordered by tall grass that swayed in the gentle breeze. Birds chirped from the trees, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked at a passing deer. The world seemed to slow down around them, and Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. "Do you come here often?" she asked, curious about his life. Luke shook his head. "Not really. I mostly stay busy with the ranch work. It can be lonely sometimes, but I like it. Gives me time to think, to focus on what's important. And today, well, it's nice to have company." Emily felt a small smile tug at her lips. "I'm glad I could provide some company then." As they continued walking, Luke shared some of the challenges of running a ranch. He talked about the long hours, the hard work, and the responsibilities that never ended. Emily listened, impressed by his dedication and the patience required to manage the land and the animals. She realized that Luke wasn't just physically strong. He had a quiet resilience that allowed him to face difficulties with calm determination. They paused near a small pond at the edge of the property. The water reflected the sky above, calm and clear, and Emily could see fish swimming near the surface. Luke leaned against a tree, watching the water thoughtfully. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked softly, glancing at her. Emily nodded. "It really is. Everything here feels so alive, so real." Luke smiled, and for a moment they simply stood there taking in the view. The silence was comfortable, not awkward, and Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized she was enjoying this more than she expected, more than just a simple visit to a ranch. There was something about Luke, something unspoken, that made her feel seen and understood. Over the next few weeks, Emily found herself making more trips to the ranch, not just for deliveries, but because she wanted to spend time with Luke. Sometimes she helped with chores, feeding the animals, cleaning the barns, or sorting through equipment. Other times they would simply walk the fields, talking about life, dreams, and hopes for the future. With each visit, their connection grew stronger, their bond deeper. One late afternoon, as they sat on the porch of the farmhouse, Luke shared a more personal story. He spoke about a time when he had faced a serious setback, a storm that had destroyed part of the ranch, leaving him struggling to rebuild. Emily listened closely, her heart aching for the difficulties he had endured. She realized that his strength wasn't just in his physical abilities, but in his perseverance and courage to face challenges head-on. Emily felt a surge of admiration and respect for him. She noticed the way his eyes softened when he spoke about the land, how passionately he described the animals and the work he loved. It was clear that Luke cared deeply about his life, his responsibilities, and the people and things he loved. And in that moment, Emily understood why she felt drawn to him. He wasn't perfect, but he was genuine, grounded, and sincere. Their bond didn't go unnoticed. Luke began to look for small ways to make her visits easier and more comfortable. He would prepare snacks, offer her a seat in the shade, or pause his work to walk alongside her. Emily appreciated these gestures, feeling a growing warmth toward him. She realized that what she felt wasn't just a passing attraction. It was a real, emotional connection that touched her heart in ways she hadn't expected. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Emily and Luke found themselves sitting quietly on a bench near the barn. The air was warm, the world serene, and for the first time, Emily felt completely at ease. "You know," Luke said softly, breaking the comfortable silence, "I didn't expect to enjoy your visits as much as I have. It's nice having someone to talk to, someone who understands, even in small ways." Emily looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. "I feel the same. It's different here in a good way. You make it easy to feel relaxed and happy." Luke smiled, a gentle, knowing smile that made Emily's chest flutter. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the quiet understanding between them growing stronger. Neither of them spoke, but the air was charged with a subtle, unspoken tension, an awareness that their feelings were shifting, becoming something more than friendship. Despite the growing closeness, Emily reminded herself to stay cautious. She didn't know much about Luke's personal life, and she wanted to respect boundaries. But at the same time, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him, the way her heart lifted whenever he smiled, the way her thoughts lingered on him long after she left. Luke, too, felt the change in their relationship. He admired Emily's kindness, intelligence, and the warmth she brought into his world. He found himself looking forward to her visits more than he cared to admit, feeling a rare sense of joy and comfort in her presence. Yet there was a part of him that remained guarded, a quiet hesitation that kept him from fully revealing his feelings. As the weeks passed, their bond continued to grow. They laughed together, shared stories, and supported each other in small ways. Emily helped Luke with tasks on the ranch, while Luke offered her insights about life, patience, and understanding. Each visit deepened their connection, building a foundation of trust, respect, and subtle affection. By the end of this part of their story, both Emily and Luke knew that something significant was developing between them. There was a spark, a sense of closeness, and a growing emotional intimacy that neither could ignore. And while they hadn't yet crossed the line into romance, the tension and anticipation were unmistakable. Both felt it, the quiet pull of attraction, the thrill of connection, and the promise of something deeper waiting just beyond the horizon. Emily left the ranch that evening with a mixture of happiness and longing. She thought about Luke constantly, replaying their conversations and moments together. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt certain that her life had changed, even in these early days. Something important was beginning, a bond that could grow into love, friendship, or perhaps something neither of them had expected. And somewhere across the wide fields, Luke watched her car disappear down the dusty road, a small smile on his face, feeling an unfamiliar but welcome warmth in his chest. He didn't know exactly where this connection would lead, but he knew one thing. Emily had stirred something inside him that he hadn't felt in years, and he wasn't ready to let it go. The weeks had passed quickly, and Emily's visits to the ranch had become a regular part of her life. Each trip felt more familiar and comfortable than the last. She had grown fond of the quiet rhythm of ranch life, the early mornings, the smell of fresh hay, the soft lowing of the cows, and even the hard work that Luke put into the land. But more than anything, she had grown fond of Luke himself. There was a warmth about him, a quiet strength that drew her in, and she found herself thinking about him more often than she cared to admit. Luke, too, felt the pull of their connection. He had never been one to easily let people into his life. Years of hard work, responsibility, and solitude had built walls around him that were difficult to break down. Yet Emily's presence seemed to make those walls crumble. He felt lighter, happier, and unexpectedly at ease when she was near. He enjoyed watching her laugh, listening to her observations, and noticing the little ways she brought energy and joy into the ranch. One late afternoon, Emily arrived at the ranch carrying her usual deliveries. The sun was low in the sky, casting golden light across the fields, and a soft breeze rustled through the trees. Luke was already outside, tending to the fence along the edge of the pasture. When he saw her approach, a smile lit up his face. "Hey, Emily," he called, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Right on time as usual." Emily laughed softly. "You know me too well." She set the boxes down and took a moment to breathe in the familiar sense of the ranch. Everything felt so alive and vibrant compared to the city. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't realized she had been missing. After unloading the supplies, they decided to take a short walk to check the animals. The path led them along the edge of the fields, bordered by tall grass swaying gently in the wind. As they walked, their conversation turned more personal. Luke spoke about the challenges he faced running the ranch, the pressure of keeping everything in order, and the occasional loneliness that came with his lifestyle. Emily listened, feeling empathy and admiration for the man in front of her. She realized that behind his strong exterior, Luke had vulnerabilities that few people ever saw. Emily shared some of her own struggles, too. She spoke of the loneliness that came with city life, the pressure to always be perfect at work, and the moments when she felt disconnected from herself. Luke listened intently, nodding in understanding. "It's important to find people who make you feel understood," he said softly, "even if just for a little while." There was a pause as they walked, the air between them charged with something unspoken. Emily felt a flutter in her chest and found herself stealing glances at Luke, noticing the way the sunlight highlighted his strong features, the warmth in his eyes, and the way he seemed to naturally command respect without trying. She realized that the connection they shared was deeper than she had expected. It wasn't just friendship. It was something that tugged at her heart and mind, making her feel alive in a way she hadn't in a long time. As the sun began to set, they found themselves near a quiet clearing, the sky painted with shades of orange, pink, and purple. Luke stopped and turned to face her. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said, his voice soft. Emily nodded, unable to speak at first. The moment felt intimate, the kind of quiet that made words almost unnecessary. She felt her heart beat faster, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Luke noticed the way her eyes lingered on him and felt a pull he could no longer ignore. "Emily," he said gently, "there's something I've been feeling, something I haven't said." She looked up at him, her curiosity piqued. "What is it?" He took a deep breath as if trying to steady himself. "I enjoy your company more than I expected. I care about you. More than I should, perhaps, but I can't help it." Emily felt a rush of emotions. Her heart raced, and for a moment she felt a thrill of joy and fear mixed together. She had been drawn to Luke since the first visit, but hearing him say those words made everything real. She realized she felt the same way, cared for, seen, and connected. Before either of them could speak again, the quiet of the clearing, the warmth of the fading sun, and the intensity of their feelings seemed to pull them closer. There was no need for hesitation. The trust and understanding they had built over weeks made the moment feel natural. Slowly, almost hesitantly at first, Luke reached out and took Emily's hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she felt a warmth spread through her body, a reassurance that this was a connection she wanted to explore. They sat on a fallen log, still holding hands, and talked quietly about their feelings. Luke admitted that he had been cautious, that he had never been good at opening up, and that he was afraid of hurting someone or making a mistake. Emily shared her own hesitations, admitting that she feared rushing into something she didn't fully understand. But despite their fears, they both knew that what they shared was rare and special. The evening deepened, and the sky darkened to a rich shade of blue. Fireflies flickered around them, and the sounds of crickets filled the night. They leaned closer, their conversation soft and filled with laughter and honesty. Emily realized she felt safe with Luke in a way she hadn't felt with anyone else. There was a comfort in his presence, a sense of being truly known and accepted. At that moment, the emotional closeness between them deepened even further. They shared stories of their pasts, their dreams, and their regrets. Luke spoke of his life on the ranch, the challenges he had faced, and the ways he had tried to protect himself from disappointment. Emily talked about her career, her family, and the moments that had shaped who she was. With each story, they found common ground, understanding, and trust. As the stars began to appear in the sky, Emily realized that she had been holding back her feelings for too long. She wanted to be close to Luke, to share this moment fully and to see where their connection might lead. Luke, sensing her emotions, gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to disappear. The fields, the animals, and even the distant ranch buildings faded into the background. All that mattered was the two of them and the undeniable connection between their hearts. They leaned closer, a soft and tender kiss sealing the emotions they had been feeling for weeks. It was not hurried or reckless. It was gentle, meaningful, and full of promise. In that moment, both Emily and Luke understood the depth of their bond. The kiss was not just a physical act. It was an expression of trust, affection, and the growing emotional intimacy that had been building between them. After a long pause, they pulled back slightly, resting their foreheads together and taking a deep breath. Emily smiled softly, feeling her heart overflow with warmth and happiness. Luke looked at her with the same emotion reflected in his eyes. "We need to take things slowly," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. "I want this, but I don't want to rush it." Luke nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "I feel the same way. We'll take it one step at a time. I don't want to lose what we're building." They stayed in the clearing for a while longer, simply enjoying each other's presence. The night air was cool, the stars bright, and the quiet of the countryside enveloped them in a sense of calm. Both Emily and Luke felt a deep sense of contentment, knowing that their connection had reached a new level, a turning point that was emotional, significant, and entirely theirs. As Emily eventually left the ranch that evening, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. Her heart was full, and she knew that her feelings for Luke had grown stronger than ever. She didn't know what challenges or surprises lay ahead, but she was ready to face them, knowing that the bond they had formed was genuine and meaningful. Luke watched her drive away, a thoughtful expression on his face. He felt a mix of joy and concern, joy for the connection they had shared and concern for the reality of the world outside this ranch. He knew that their story was only beginning, and that life could present unexpected challenges, but for now, he allowed himself to savor the happiness that Emily had brought into his life. The night settled over the ranch, and as Luke returned to his duties, he carried with him a quiet hope. He knew that their relationship had taken a significant step forward, and that the path ahead, though uncertain, was filled with possibilities. Emily had touched something inside him that he thought had long been dormant, a hope, a warmth, and a desire for companionship that he had almost forgotten existed. And so, with the stars overhead and the soft rustle of the fields around him, Luke began to consider the future, not just of the ranch, but of the life he might share with Emily. The next few days after that evening at the clearing were filled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness for Emily. She could not stop thinking about Luke and the closeness they had shared. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the warmth of his hands, the softness in his voice, and the way he had looked at her as if she was the only person in the world. She wanted to see him again, to feel that connection, but at the same time, a small part of her hesitated. She sensed there was more to Luke than he was letting on, and while she didn't want to ruin what they had, she also didn't want to be caught off guard by something she wasn't ready for. Emily arrived at the ranch the following week, carrying her usual supplies. As she approached, she noticed that Luke seemed more serious than usual, his brow slightly furrowed and his movements deliberate. He greeted her with a polite smile, but there was a tension in his posture that made Emily's heart flutter with unease. "Hey, Emily," he said, trying to sound casual. "Good to see you." "You too," she replied, sensing that something was different. "Is everything okay?" Luke hesitated for a moment, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "We should talk," he said finally, his tone gentle but firm. "There's something you need to know, something important." Emily felt her stomach tighten. She had a feeling that this conversation would change things, but she didn't know exactly how. She nodded, setting down the boxes. "Okay, what is it?" Luke led her to a quiet spot near the barn, away from the animals and the usual noise of the ranch. He took a deep breath and met her gaze, his eyes filled with a mix of seriousness and vulnerability. "Emily," he began, "there's something I haven't told you. I should have been honest from the start, and I'm sorry for keeping it from you." Emily felt her pulse quicken. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. Luke's hands fidgeted slightly, as if he was struggling to find the right words. I'm married." The words hit Emily like a sudden storm. She took a step back, her mind spinning. "Married?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. You never said anything about that." Luke's expression softened with regret. "I know, I should have told you from the beginning. But it's complicated. My marriage isn't what it should be. My wife and we've been distant for years. I never intended to deceive you, Emily. I just didn't know how to say it." Emily felt a whirlwind of emotions: shock, disappointment, sadness, and confusion. She had trusted him, opened her heart, and allowed herself to feel something real. And now this revelation made her feel as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "So, what does this mean?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. "Does she know about us?" Luke shook his head. "No, she doesn't. We've been living separate lives for a while, emotionally speaking. But I understand how this looks, and I don't blame you for being upset. I just wanted to be honest with you now, before anything else happens." Emily's mind raced. She had felt such a strong connection with Luke, and now she was faced with a reality she hadn't anticipated. She felt hurt, not because of him alone, but because she had allowed herself to become emotionally invested without knowing the full truth. Her trust felt shaken, and she realized she needed time to think. I need some time," she said finally, her voice trembling slightly. "I care about you, Luke, but I can't just ignore this. I need to understand what this means for me, for you, for us." Luke nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of her words. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk, and I promise I want to do the right thing, whatever that may be." Emily spent the next few days in a state of emotional turmoil. She replayed their conversations, their moments together, and the kiss under the stars. She remembered the warmth and safety she had felt with Luke, and she wondered if any of it had been real or if it had been tainted by the truth she had just learned. She struggled with her feelings. Part of her wanted to forgive him and continue what they had, but another part knew that stepping into a complicated situation could bring heartbreak. Luke, meanwhile, respected her distance. He threw himself into the ranch work, repairing fences, tending to the animals, and managing daily tasks. But his mind was never far from Emily. He thought about how her presence had brightened his days, how her laughter had eased the loneliness he had carried for years, and how her kindness had touched him in ways he hadn't expected. He knew he had made a mistake by not being upfront sooner, and he feared that he might have lost something truly special. Eventually, Emily returned to the ranch, her heart still heavy but her resolve stronger. She wanted to understand Luke's situation, to hear his side of the story in full, and to decide whether she could continue seeing him with honesty and clarity. Luke greeted her quietly, sensing the tension but also the determination in her eyes. "Emily," he said softly, "I'm glad you came. I want to explain everything if you'll let me." Emily nodded. "I want to understand. I need to know why, Luke. Why didn't you tell me?" Luke took a deep breath and began. He spoke about the challenges in his marriage, the emotional distance that had developed over time, and the sense of obligation that had kept him from leaving sooner. He admitted that he had been afraid of hurting both his wife and himself, and that he hadn't wanted to complicate anyone's life unnecessarily. He explained that meeting Emily had awakened feelings he hadn't expected, feelings that made him question his choices and priorities. Emily listened, her heart aching for the complexity of his situation. She could see his honesty, his struggle, and the pain he carried. Yet she also felt the sting of betrayal, the knowledge that he had kept a crucial part of his life hidden. She realized that their connection, as strong and meaningful as it was, now existed in a space filled with uncertainty and risk. "I care about you, Luke," she said finally, her voice steady but soft. "But this changes everything. I can't just pretend it doesn't exist. I need to think about what I'm willing to accept, and I need to know that you're being honest with me, completely honest." Luke nodded, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I am, Emily. I promise. You deserve that honesty. And I'll do whatever it takes to make things right, even if it means making hard choices." Over the next few days, Emily took time for herself. She walked in the fields, spent quiet moments reflecting on her feelings, and considered what love and trust truly meant. She thought about the connection she shared with Luke, the joy and warmth he brought into her life, and the reality of his marriage. She knew that love wasn't always simple, and sometimes it came with complications that required courage, understanding, and difficult decisions. Eventually, Emily returned to the ranch once more, determined to speak with Luke. She found him working near the barn, focused yet aware of her presence. "I've thought about everything," she said, approaching him carefully, "and I've realized something. I care about you, Luke. I really do. But I need to be clear about my boundaries, and I need to know what your intentions are." Luke set down his tools, meeting her gaze fully. "I understand, and I want you to know that I'm committed to being honest with you from now on. I don't want to hide anything, and I want to figure out the right way forward, whatever that may mean." Emily took a deep breath. "I want to see if we can move forward, but slowly. We need to take things one step at a time, with honesty and respect. If we can do that, maybe there's a chance for us." Luke smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude in his eyes. "We'll take it one step at a time," he agreed. "I promise." In that moment, both of them understood that love was not always easy or simple. It required trust, patience, and the courage to face difficult truths. They knew that challenges lay ahead, but for the first time, they felt a renewed sense of hope. Their connection, though tested, had grown stronger, and they were ready to navigate the complexities together. As Emily left the ranch that evening, she felt a sense of calm. The path ahead was uncertain, but she had made a conscious choice to face it with clarity and courage. She understood that love was rarely perfect, but when built on honesty, respect, and understanding, it could withstand even the most unexpected revelations. And somewhere on the ranch, Luke watched the sun dip below the horizon, his heart full of hope. He knew that the road ahead would not be simple, but he also knew that Emily had given him a chance to rebuild trust, to show his sincerity, and to explore a connection that had unexpectedly transformed his life. The following weeks were filled with careful steps, quiet conversations, and a growing understanding between Emily and Luke. Both of them knew that their connection had been tested, and now it was time to move forward with honesty, patience, and respect. Emily continued to visit the ranch regularly, helping with chores, walking through the fields, and sharing moments that brought comfort and warmth. Each day felt like a new opportunity to build trust and see if their bond could survive the complications of life. Luke, for his part, was determined to act with sincerity. He focused on his responsibilities on the ranch, but he also made time to be present for Emily. He realized that he could not erase the past or the mistakes he had made, but he could show through actions that he valued her and their relationship. Each small gesture, a helping hand, a kind word, or simply listening, became a way to rebuild confidence and create a foundation for something stronger. One late afternoon, as Emily walked along the edge of the pasture, Luke joined her. The sky was painted in golden shades of sunset, the air soft and warm, and the distant hills seemed to glow under the fading light. There was a quiet calm in the world around them, and it felt like a safe space where they could speak openly. "Emily," Luke began, his voice gentle, "I want you to know that I'm serious about what we're building. I don't take this lightly. I know there are challenges, but I want to face them honestly together with you." Emily smiled softly, feeling the reassurance in his words. "I believe you, Luke, and I want to try too. I've thought a lot about us, about how we move forward, and I know that we need patience, trust, and honesty. But I want this connection to grow. I want to see where it can lead." They walked in silence for a while, the quiet only deepening their sense of closeness. It was not a hurried or dramatic moment. Instead, it was steady, calm, and full of understanding. Emily felt her heart open in a way that it hadn't in years. She realized that love wasn't always about excitement or grand gestures. It was also about trust, presence, and the willingness to face life together, no matter the obstacles. As the days turned into weeks, their relationship began to take on a new rhythm. They shared small moments of joy, laughing together while feeding the animals, watching sunsets in comfortable silence, and discussing dreams for the future. Emily found herself learning more about life on a ranch, the responsibilities it entailed, and the satisfaction that came from hard work and connection to the land. She appreciated the simple things, the smell of fresh hay, the sound of the creek, and the quiet strength of the people who worked there. Luke, meanwhile, discovered that having Emily by his side brought a lightness to his days that he hadn't felt in years. Her presence reminded him of the importance of balance, of taking moments to breathe, reflect, and enjoy life beyond the daily demands of the ranch. He cherished their conversations, the laughter they shared, and the quiet understanding that grew between them. Slowly, cautiously, they began to trust each other fully once again. One afternoon, Emily and Luke sat on the porch, watching the cattle graze in the distance. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the fields, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and grass. Luke turned to Emily, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about how life can be unpredictable. We meet people when we least expect it, and sometimes they change everything. You've changed a lot for me, Emily. You've reminded me that connection and honesty matter, that love can be simple and real if we take the time to nurture it." Emily reached out and touched his hand. "And you've reminded me that it's okay to open up, to trust, and to let someone in. I've been careful with my heart, but with you, it feels safe to care, to share, and to hope." There was a long pause as they simply sat together, the comfort of each other's presence speaking louder than words. Emily realized that she had come to love this quiet, steady connection. It was not built on fleeting passion or excitement alone, but on understanding, trust, and shared moments that carried meaning. As the months passed, they continued to grow closer. Luke resolved to handle his personal situation responsibly, ensuring that he could move forward without creating unnecessary pain for anyone involved. Emily, meanwhile, learned to balance her emotions with practical understanding. She knew that love required patience and clarity, and she was willing to embrace it with both her heart and mind. One sunny morning, As they walked through the fields together, Emily felt a sense of contentment she had never experienced in her life. The world seemed brighter, the air fresher, and her heart lighter. Luke smiled at her, sensing the shift in her mood, and took her hand gently in his. "You look happy today," he said, his voice warm. Emily laughed softly. I feel at peace. I've realized that life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. It's the moments we share, the trust we build, and the care we give that make it meaningful." Luke nodded, squeezing her hand. "I feel the same. And I promise I'll keep being honest, patient, and present with you. That's all I can give, and I hope it's enough." It was in these quiet, everyday moments that Emily and Luke's bond strengthened. They discovered that love was not just about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about being there for each other, supporting one another, and creating a sense of safety and trust. Every shared smile, every conversation, and every act of kindness built a foundation that could withstand challenges and uncertainties. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills and the sky turned shades of pink and purple, Emily and Luke stood on the porch, watching the world in comfortable silence. The animals were calm, the fields peaceful, and the air filled with a gentle serenity. Luke turned to Emily, his eyes reflecting the colors of the sky. "I know the path hasn't been easy," he said softly, "but I feel like we're moving forward in the right way. We've learned a lot about each other, about honesty, patience, and trust. And I believe that what we have, it's worth protecting, worth nurturing." Emily smiled, feeling her heart swell with gratitude and hope. "I believe that too, Luke, and I'm ready to see where this journey takes us, step by step with care and understanding. We can face whatever comes together." They stood there for a long time, hand in hand, feeling the quiet strength of their connection. Emily realized that love, when built on trust and understanding, could survive even the most unexpected challenges. She had learned that it was possible to care deeply, to hope, and to grow with someone, even when life presented complications. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship continued to flourish. They shared quiet mornings, long walks in the fields, and evenings filled with laughter and conversation. The bond they had built was steady, resilient, and full of mutual respect. Emily felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had chosen a path that honored both her heart and her values. Luke, too, found a renewed sense of purpose. Emily had reminded him of the beauty of connection, the importance of honesty, and the joy that could come from sharing life with someone who truly understood him. Together, they created a space of warmth, trust, and emotional intimacy that neither had expected but both cherished deeply. By the time the season changed, and the first hints of autumn appeared in the hills, Emily and Luke knew that their journey had been transformative. They had faced challenges, navigated complicated emotions, and learned to communicate with honesty and care. And in doing so, they had discovered a love that was steady, meaningful, and enduring. One quiet evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emily rested her head on Luke's shoulder. She felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his presence, and the reassurance of his trust. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that together they could face anything. Luke wrapped his arm around her gently, holding her close. "I'm grateful for you, Emily," he said softly, "for your trust, your patience, and your heart. You've changed my life in ways I never imagined." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never known. "And you've changed mine, Luke. You've shown me that love can be honest, steady, and beautiful, even when life is complicated. I'm ready to face the future, knowing that we're in it together." The stars appeared in the sky above, twinkling like tiny reminders of hope, possibility, and the beauty of connection. Emily and Luke sat together, hand in hand, hearts aligned and spirits lifted. They had faced uncertainty, navigated challenges, and chosen to trust in one another. And in doing so, they had found a love that was real, enduring, and worth every step of the journey. In the quiet of the night, surrounded by the fields, the animals, and the open sky, Emily and Luke knew that their story was just beginning. But this time, it was a story built on honesty, trust, and the courage to love fully. And that was a beginning they both embraced with open hearts, ready to face whatever life would bring next together.